The Justice Department appealing a contempt threat from federal judge James Boasberg after saying the Trump administration violated his orders on those deportation
Chanley
flights.
Painter is here with all the details. Hi, Chanley.
Hey, good morning, Carly and Todd. The White House says it plans to seek immediate appellate relief after federal judge James Boasberg took action to hold Trump officials in contempt for defying his March 15th order stopping all deportation flights to El Salvador, saying the administration failed to return 2 planes full of illegal migrants. The judge writing this quote, "The court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt." Well, President Trump took to Truth Social to rail against the judiciary, writing, quote, "They seem to hate Trump so much that anything goes." Well, meantime, the administration is also appealing a judge's order to provide daily updates on efforts to bring back the alleged MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This, as the White House says, it not only has documentation confirming Garcia's gang ties, but also a petition for a protective order by Garcia's wife alleging domestic abuse.
If he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again.
And as for Judge Boasberg's contempt finding, the administration has a week to show compliance before the judge says he will actually move forward in that, guys.
Chanley Painter live for us. Chanley, thank you. And let's pick it up there with the executive director of the Oversight Project, Mike Howell. Mike, what is Trump's best argument in response to Judge Boasberg's contempt threat?
Well, the Supreme Court has already made a pretty good argument for him when it vacated Boasberg's previous order and found that he lacked jurisdiction to do this. And so now the Trump administration has appealed it. Boasberg has laid down the gauntlet. Either compliance with his previously vacated order or appointing his own little special prosecutor to just continually go after the administration. So the administration needs to carry on as they have, which is in obeying the previous and other orders and the order for the Supreme Court, and just keep fighting back against this judicial resistance.
Meantime, AG Pam Bondi doubling down on keeping Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. Watch.
President Bukele made it crystal clear that he is not returning him to our country. Our only job legally was to facilitate it if, according to the Supreme Court, President Bukele wanted him to come back to our country, and he does not want him back, and we do not want him back in our country.
I know a lot has been made of that word facilitate, and I know a lot of people think the whole case will come down to that word, but I want to focus on the information that we learned yesterday. Do you think this case will ultimately come down to the evidence presented yesterday, that Abrego Garcia is tied to MS-13, that there have been the situation with his wife, despite what the Democrats are trying to do, which is paint him as this saintly Maryland dad?
Yeah, ultimately, I don't think, for the sake of Abrego, that his ties to MS-13 are the most important fact in the case whatsoever. He's in the United States illegally, and that is sufficient grounds for him to be deported one way or another at the resolution of all this, depending on what type of removal the administration seeks. But the broader problem here, and the one that infects every aspect of the Trump administration's ability to carry out their agenda, is the role of the courts right now, which are being just abused writ large. It's time for Congress to get in the game, step up, to stop having President Trump fight every fight himself and use their constitutional power to limit the jurisdiction of these rogue courts. The Constitution allows Congress to create inferior courts or change the jurisdiction. They could do so in the matters in reconciliation, particularly, which they're all going to be voting on very soon. So Congress can tweet, they can give speeches, they can express, their aplomb at what's happening, but they have the constitutional remedy available to them. Speaker Johnson is an excellent constitutional lawyer. They have a pretty big vote coming up, and they could tie this matter into reconciliation to finally get President Trump some of the backup he so desperately deserves to execute the mandate and the agenda.
I just want to follow up there, because reconciliation is often tough. It has to be tied to a budget. You think that reconciliation could be the means by which Trump gets relief from the lawfare, courtfare, judgefare, whatever you want to call it, against his agenda?
I do. And I think it's the only realistic path, actually. Obviously, for reconciliation, you are somewhat limited in the bounds of the matters they apply to. But if reconciliation's going to apply to immigration and border and in tax law, that certainly seems sufficient. And guess who gets to decide what reconciliation, quote unquote, applies to or is germane? It is the Senate parliamentarian who, guess what, is a Harry Reid appointed staffer, which the Senate could fire and hire another one. So that is the constitutional remedy at hand for the constitutional abuses of the left's takeover of the judiciary. This is going to be common practice. Boasberg will be a hero no matter what. Other radical rogue judges will follow suit. And it doesn't matter if they pass a big, beautiful reconciliation bill that's going to be stopped every other week by a radical judge. Congress needs to thoughtfully enact serious reform. And I have no doubt Speaker Johnson not only has the brain power, but the leadership skills to help get it done.
Mike Howell, really interesting insight this morning. Appreciate you waking up with us. Thank you, sir.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.